The time bomb is set.
Sega were throwing arcade games out left, right and centre back in the 80s and 90s. Some games became instant hits, while others disappeared into the depths of obscurity. Then there are those that are known, but are not really famous. This is where Alien Syndrome fits in. The game is a typical overhead shooter, set aboard space stations that have been taken over by evil alien beings. It's up to you to wipe out these evil beasts and rescue the crew members. Our heroes are a bit dumb, however. Before saving everyone, they decide to set a time bomb. Why? To make you rush through the levels, of course. Blowing up the space station after rescuing the crew would be far too sensible. Throughout the stage you can pick up new weapons which are usually essential in taking out the end of stage boss. Enter the boss room with the wrong weapon and you're screwed. In total there are 6 main stages of simultaneous 2-player action.
Time bomb is set.
You'd expect the Famicom version to be worse than the Master System, but far from it. This port plays reasonably well. Sure, the colours are a little drab and the game's pace is a lot slower than the arcade original, but at least it's 2-player simultaneous and relatively faithful to the arcade version. Probably the worst point about this port is having to rescue every captured crew member, unlike the original. This can be a real pain if you miss one at the far end of the stage. The Master System version is basically like an all new game. The stages have been messed around with, as have the enemies. Some of the weapon power ups are also missing, but the biggest disappointment is the lack of 2-player action. Add in the screen by screen scrolling, heightened difficulty settings and stiffer controls, and you're left with a pretty average if not slightly disappointing port of Alien Syndrome. Sims were the developer behind the Game Gear game, which is probably why this is much more than a basic Master System port. What we have here is a much better looking, playing and possibly sounding game. The game is mostly the same as the arcade version, with many of the same bosses, although there are 4 mostly new levels. You can now access the map screen at any time and can power up your weapons by grabbing the same kind of power up twice. It's surprisingly good and probably the best 8-bit version out there. As you can see, the graphics are really nice for the C64, as is the audio, but it's all ruined by slow scrolling and giant turds following you around the first level. Or at least that's what they look like to me. Just like Commando, Alien Syndrome features scrolling that just can't keep up with the action. Why is this such an issue? Well, you can't get away from the enemies, and that is a major problem. I really can't understand why the developers thought slow scrolling would be acceptable. Within 30 seconds of gameplay, it's apparent that this is a big problem. Stupid programmers. The Amstrad CPC really was at the bottom of the pile when it came to quality home ports. Slow, unresponsive gameplay is the order of the day in this version. Still, at least the graphics are kinda detailed, if not lacking a little in the colour department. Come to think of it, the enemies in this version look even more like massive turds than they do in the C64 game. Quite fitting really. By far the worst of the 8-bit ports. Not only do the two main character portraits look like some bad 12-year-old art class effort, but actually the game is completely unfair. You'll be put into situations where it is impossible to escape without taking a hit. Then there's the bad collision detection and awful sound. Best avoid this at all costs. For some reason the Amiga port is missing two of the arcade stages. It's not like the game is heavy on graphics, so it could have fitted onto two floppies I would have thought. Oh well. What is here looks pretty good, however, The way the screen scrolls can be off-putting at times, resulting in an unnecessary death. It's also a little too fast, meaning that you can actually run into an enemy without realizing it. The ST port suffers from the same missing levels and poor scrolling as the Amiga, however this version manages to play even worse. Now the enemies seem to move just as fast as you can, making it a real pain trying to get away from them. The sound has also suffered quite a bit in the translation.
The time bomb is set. Round 1. The time bomb is
As you'd
set.
expect, the X68000 port is pretty much arcade perfect, thanks to those skilled programmers at Denpa. There's not much else to say really.
The time bomb is set.
Featuring all 6 stages but looking like the Amiga version rather than the X68000, this MS-DOS port isn't all that bad. In fact, it only really has one major drawback, and that is a stupid one. One that the developers should have noticed. When running left or right, you're far too close to the end of the screen, meaning it's all too easy to run into an enemy. If this one oversight was corrected, then this MS-DOS version would have been a great Western version of Alien Syndrome. I honestly have to say that the PlayStation 2 remake of Alien Syndrome is awful. For a start, you can't see anything. The graphics are so dark, plus there's no way to brighten them up within the game. So either you are left with messing around with your TV settings or playing the game as it is. Gameplay wise, there are a few improvements over the original, such as being able to shoot in one direction while running in another, but that's not enough to stop this yawn fest of a game sending you off to the land of Nod.
Thank you. It's a mess in here. Looks like some intense firefights. No human contact so far. There's some strange organic material on the walls, fused to the metal. I don't like this one bit.
Keep your eyes and ears open, Lieutenant. Get to that bridge.
If you thought the PlayStation 2 version was bad, then you haven't seen the Wii game. What ruins this game apart from the incredibly dull gameplay are the stupid Wii controls. Why this game couldn't be compatible with the classic controller with its dual analog sticks is a mystery. So what we have here is more of a remake than a port, with dull gameplay, annoying camera that won't point the way you want it to, and controls that'll make your arm tired, since you're constantly having to point the Wii remote at the screen. So let's take a look at all the versions of Alien Syndrome running side by side.